Hey, what's up guys? So this is a brand new series I'm rolling out on the channel, and the inspiration for it is largely attributed from you guys. So thank you once again to all you guys for subscribing and sticking around the channel. It really does make a huge difference in terms of motivation for making these things better and just delivering you better content overall. Alright, so this is a series in which we'll be talking about a figure and doing what figures do best, posing. Yup, that's right, we'll be discussing, keyword there, discussing the top 5 poses for each figure. Now that is of course going to mean different things to different people, whether it's iconic poses from the anime, poses that show off a figure's accessories, or just an all-around badass pose. I'm sure we'll get a good mix of them in this series and its episodes to come. And just a little bit more framework around this series here, I'm going to try to keep the top 5 poses limited to solo poses, as I feel I want to include poses more people can actually replicate, seeing as how this isn't the most readily available line of figures. Paired poses aren't as easy to do that with. In addition to that, we're going to try to limit these poses to including just what's in each box for each figure, meaning no third-party accessories, because of course, not even myself has access to all of those. Now, a reminder once again that I'm not saying I know best, just sharing my opinions with you guys and hoping to hear the same from you. And everyone else who wants to be a troll in the comments and get their flack on like yak on, put your hands back in your pants and go back to that other tab you were on. With that said, let's kick off episode 1 of this series with the one and only Super Saiyan Awakening Goku. Alright, so I thought it fitting to start off with this guy because he really was a major pivot point in terms of sculpt and articulation in the line. The beginning of a new era, as I said, in the history of Figuarts documentary. By the way, if you haven't checked that out, get that done like now or rewatch it. So kicking off the top 5, we have Goku in his Super Saiyan Awakened pose. And I mean, I don't think I have to say much more about why this one is on here. It's what the figure is named, and it really captures this iconic moment from the anime with absolute ease. Now, the reason I don't have this pose higher up on the list is simply because it doesn't utilize the spectacular aesthetic assets this figure has very much at all. There's just so much more to this figure that you really can't see and you're missing out on, especially with its back turned towards you. And not to sound like I'm taking a complete 180-degree turn and contradicting myself here, but if it weren't for the fact that there was so much nostalgia behind this pose, it probably wouldn't even be on this list. Moreover, one small detail, if you're really strict on your anime accuracy, is that he actually had more of his blue t-shirt on when he initially struck this pose in the anime. So, quick little thing on this, but yeah, that's number 5. Alright, so coming in at number 4, I wanted to choose just one version of this style of pose, but really it could go any way you chose, and that is some sort of stoic pose. The Awakening Goku figure, let alone Goku himself as a newborn Super Saiyan in the anime, especially at the beginning of the Android saga, is very mysterious, not even totally sure of his own powers himself at this point, and I think posing the figure to reflect that is a very true to the source material kind of way to pose him. And this also one-ups the Awakening pose because obviously now you get to see the front of the figure in all its glory. I also really favor this style of pose because it really lets you play around with any of the hands he comes with, from the fists to the open blast hands, really any of them. The only drawback in my opinion about this pose and why it isn't higher on this list is you're pretty much gonna have to stick with a neutral mouth face. Well, in the case of this stance anyways. So right in the middle of the pack, we have the in-flight martial arts style of pose. Now I rate this one highly just because now you're making use of the whole other level of detail on this figure, and that being the torn and tattered battle damaged clothes. Tamashi decided for the better in my opinion and made it so that the tears, as well as the belt, give the impression of some sort of flowing actiony wind look, which if you've ever played Killer Instinct Gold on the N64, reminds me a lot of that wind from the Wind title screen. But anyways, I think this adds a level of depth to the kind of the impressions people would have when looking at your display. Basically, now you're going from a bunch of plastic dolls standing on your shelf to, well, art. This pose also encompasses a great deal of what we see in the final minutes of Planet Namek's existence when Frieza slips up and Goku pretty much gets him cut in half. It starts to show off a little bit more of that newborn Super Saiyan Goku style, if you know what I mean. Not so innocent, yet not completely overtaken by ruthless aggression. And if the anime accuracy is something you're still striving for in your display, this definitely helps you out. Again, with the faces though, this pose lets you get away with pretty much any of the faces as well as any of the hands, so versatility is the name of the game with this coming in at number 3. Okay, so before we strike the final two poses, I want to throw in some honorable mentions because I'm sure there's some people feeling violated because I left out dual character poses despite referencing moments when there should have been in fact a paired pose going on. My first honorable mention is, of course, anything with Frieza. Now, I don't have the newer Frieza, but the original one works just as well, and I don't think I have to say much about how or why this pose is up there. But rather than just tell you that this is my go-to pose, which it's not, I'm sure I don't have to tell you again, there's countless ways that you can pose these guys together, and one of my other favorite ways to do so with these guys is just having them clash elbow to elbow. My next honorable mention includes swapping the Super Saiyan head out for the base form head. Now again, I've got some catching up to do in terms of getting the newest base Goku head, but the older model works just as well for now. I think this creates the perfect end of a long fight for Goku, as well as sets you up for quite the nice Spirit Bomb pose. Now, speaking of more of the blue t-shirt, my third and last honorable mention goes to posing him with Majin Vegeta. Now, I know, there are quite a few anime inaccuracies here, especially the fact that Vegeta isn't battle damaged here either, but hey, like I said, this fight is probably one of my most favorites in the anime, and I wish you guys were interested in hearing my top 5 anime fights. But these two locked in this pose is pretty nostalgic for me, and I can't wait to see the proper iterations of both of these later on. Alright, so coming in at number 2, I've got Goku gathering some good old ki, but seriously, you see this pose everywhere and with good reason. It really captures what we fell in awe about with Super Saiyans, and that is power. And this pose also crosses the line from the quieter, more mysterious Goku to the furious, rip your hands off, punch you in the stomach real hard Goku. Now, of course, it'll look 10 times better with an aura effect behind it, but unfortunately, we didn't get that included with the initial release. Fortunately though, this pose still works really well, especially if you've got LED lights in your display shining down on them. And I suppose one of the biggest wow factors for this pose is just the fact that even those not too familiar with Dragon Ball will instantly recognize who this is when Goku is powering up like this. I think the only drawback with this is that it works best from an angle. Like on straight on views, it's not as cool. I mean, like, you can adjust it to get a little bit more of a different pose, but this screen, the wideness of the mouth doesn't really suit it in my opinion from this angle here, so I would definitely put him on an angle like that. All in all, I feel this is a pretty safe way to pose this figure without looking back and wondering if you did Goku justice. Goku justice. So Kamehameha at number 1 is just that. The iconic Kamehameha pose. Really, you just can't get more Goku than this, and for me, I feel this is the most iconic pose for this figure. Now, whether you opt to display the charge or the blast is entirely up to you, of course, but for me, I love the look of the charge stance, especially under LED lighting. If you're fortunate enough to have the charge effect, you can really see why. Otherwise, I would totally say the blast stance is the way to go. You see, this is on the cover of so many various video games, posters, and other merch, and it's probably because it's what people think of when you say the words Dragon Ball. Just muscle-bound, blonde-haired dudes with spiky hair firing off gargantuan waves of energy at each other. And really guys, no other pose captures that better than this. You see this pose and go, what's he doing? Oh, he's charging / firing Kamehameha wave. Why does he look beat up? Oh, it's probably because it's a big-ass fight. End result, damn. Need I say much more? Alright guys, so there's my take on the top 5 ways to pose Super Saiyan Awakening Goku. Like I said, fully up for discussion, not destruction, and I of course want to hear from you guys about how you pose him, as well as who you want to see next in this series. Hopefully it's a figure I currently have, but I am working on getting all of them. Speaking of that, if you haven't already, hitting the like button for me definitely helps me get closer to being able to use the revenue from this channel to snag some of the pricier figures on eBay and such. But until next time guys, you know what I always say. May the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. Peace.